me a countdown or something, Aaron, because it looks amateurish otherwise if we're not quite sure when it's. Oh, hello, hello. Great to be here, everyone. What a treat. Um, so, what is this meeting that you've signed up for? We have done a number of road shows around the country. Took a while, actually. First one was in the spring in Stevenage, and we did places like Durham and Doncaster in the autumn. And then the last one was Wokingham just last week. So we've done all 9 regions now. And I said, I tell you what, for people that couldn't make the any of the road shows, let's do a special webinar with the content from the road shows, and then we can retire this material. Now, to be clear, we're only covering the street manager stuff that was covered during the road shows. So we won't be touching on, I'm going to go to the slide deck here, Aaron. I'm going to go full screen on the slide deck. We won't be touching on lane rental. We won't be touching on the NSG stuff. We were lucky enough to be joined at some of the road shows by the Nuar guys. We won't be touching on policy at all in this webinar, gang. So any questions, keep it to Street Manager. Yeah, let's give it a go. I hope you enjoy it. I can't see anything, Aaron, apart from my slides. So if there's questions, we can maybe tackle them at the end of sections, because I think I've got, maybe 3 or 4 sections. So we'll see how it goes. So without further ado, and forgive me, guys, I'm going to be checking the time on my phone as well, because I always keep to time. Oh, by the way, I am Paul Chandler, the product owner for the Street Manager service. And if you're attending this webinar, it means that you didn't make it to a roadshow. And if you did make it to a roadshow and you're still on the webinar, well, that's fine. That's fine. We all make our choices in life, I guess. So without further ado, I started off with these numbers for Street Manager. 3 million permits created, and then you've got, oh, I should have put this on the slide, but you've got basically 2 million work stops, give or take. So I always think that's fairly remarkable that we're losing 1 million through cancellations, refusals, work's not being carried out, whatever it might be. That strikes me as a fairly, big number. 150 million polling hits. So we're actually aiming to get that down to 100 million next year, because the aim for this year is to move people over from a system where they pull stuff from us. Have you got anything? Have you got anything? To a system where we're pushing stuff out, and then you don't need to be polling the whole time. So look out for that over the next year. 1.8 million inspections. That's nearly an inspection for every work stop. Just an insane amount of inspections that are going on out there. And isn't it nice just to have these numbers? In the olden days, we didn't know how many things like this were happening across the whole country. It was a real effort to kind of get this stuff, and now I've got it at the click of a button. And I think it's instructive for me how forward plans, Section 58, Section 74s, these are tiny numbers in the scheme of things, aren't they? When you're talking about 2 million work stops. But of course, as we know from experience, any time a job has a Section 58 on it, a Section 81 is more complicated. Any job that has a Section 74 on it, these things become more expensive and or more time consuming as much as anything, can take up more of our time. So yeah, just some fun stats to start off with there. Now, when I started doing these road shows in the spring, performance-based inspections was a bit more of a hot topic. But I think partly because of these things we've done, allowing you to change the inspection rate up and down by more than 5%, letting people update their inspection numbers during the quarter. We had a whole kerfuffle back in the day with somebody accidentally stopping their quarter, and then it was like halfway through the first month, and it was like, oh, you can't do any more inspections. So we had to do an urgent, give them the ability to reverse that. And then the other thing we've done is the ability for people to withdraw their sample inspection results. So that's not perfect. So what happens is you withdraw that sample inspection, and then we give you a new inspection. So ideally, you'd really want to change the result, wouldn't you? Probably from a fail to a pass. And instead, you have to do another inspection on a different job, more effort for the HA, and you have to it's another chance to fail the job for the promoter when they've presumably, passed that one that was had the result updated. So maybe one beautiful day in Street Manager we'll be editing the outcomes of our inspections, but for now, at least we give you the highway authority the chance to do the correct number of inspections if they withdraw the sample during the quarter that it was originally done in. That's the rub there. So at this point, I would ask questions to the audience, and we did get a few questions, in the spring, but it felt like, and the results of our survey back this up, people saying things like, "Oh, this year the process of starting my sample was a lot better," and that kind of thing. So it feels like we're in a better place now with these performance-based inspections. Probably the biggest change we've made to Street Manager, well, no, probably about it really, the biggest change we've made in Street Manager since we went live. Pretty major stuff, guys, for people to be getting used to. So after that, I would go into what I call the big stuff, and it's just a sort of review of the big ticket items that we've done in Street Manager since we went live. So private streets, probably the last thing I would say that we had on our to-do list of something that was available, like a major thing that was available in the previous world that we hadn't built in Street Manager yet. So an absolute delight to build that. And now, as I sit here today, halfway through January 2025, where's my hoverboard, guys? We are only a few weeks away from version 4 of the API being deprecated and ceasing to exist. And that will get rid of the ability to send a permit on a private street. So by that point, everybody will have switched over to these private street notifications. But at the moment, we've still got that two possible worlds of private street notifications and permits on private streets. So yeah, looking forward to getting rid of API v4 next month, and all that goes away. Great to get investigatory inspections into Street Manager. Now, some of these things, if we did it recently, I know when it was, but other stuff I'm just like, well, that happened at some point between 2023 and 2020. Don't get older, guys. It ruins your memory, but great to get investigatory inspections into Street Manager. Section 74s also happened at some point in the past. Who knows when? I think it was 22 or 23 maybe. As soon as I came on board the project in 2018, I can remember that date at least, I had in my mind that I wanted to do something in the area of Section 74s to move people away from spreadsheets. And I had a beautiful spreadsheet when I worked for a highway authority. Maybe they still use it now. I don't know. But I hope not, because they should be using Street Manager. Shouldn't have said that. Uh, but I think it's been really well received. There was a bit of confusion over the finances and who could see the finances, and you need to be a Streetworks admin to be able to see the amounts of money on a Section 74 charge. But overall, like I say, I think it's worked really well and been a big benefit for people. Section 58s. At this point, I would say who here was at a roadshow before we went live, and a lot of hands would go up, and I would talk about how difficult it was to go live on Street Manager without Section 58. That was one of the things that we said we weren't doing, where people were like, "What do you mean you're not doing Section 58s?" So we built that after we went live, and again, I think it works pretty well overall. There's certainly some areas where people raise suggestions with us and say, "Oh, if it just worked like this, or could you do that? It would be better." But overall, I think it works pretty well. Duration challenge, non-acceptance. Oh, guys, my goodness, the number of sessions we had with the SMEs around that. We put a lot of time into it, but I think it's paid off. We wanted to have something better than the tennis you got under the Eaton system, where things would just go back and forth. So people don't really raise tickets around it or suggestions, which suggests to me that the functionality has been well received. So, that was a fairly major piece of work, and I'm really glad that we did it. Performance reporting, a tough area. We will talk about it more later on in this webinar briefly. In Street Manager, you can use download all my data. You can use the list pages. You can use the list pages to export. You can connect it up to Power BI or something like that. And then you've got these performance reports. And we built the first 6 there initially that you can see at the top of the first 6 on the page. And I'm sure if we did a round robin on this webinar, we could come up with another 12 that we wanted to do that would, basically everybody wants their data in the exact format that they want it in. So reporting is a really tough area. I guess one thing I would like to do in the future in the area of reporting is look at what information people provide on their 3-year annual permit report, and then let them produce that data through this screen. You might need to run it 3 times, once for each year, or who knows how we'd do that bit. But at least if we can agree and come up with standard reports in this section and through the API, then people can produce that information for their permit reports in a pain-free and consistent fashion, relatively pain-free. I couldn't find a good picture on Street Manager for subsuming, so I just put the word subsume into an image search, and this was like the first one that turned up, basically. Don't ask. But one of those bits of functionality that we just added into Street Manager, I don't think we did much publicity around it, to be honest, and people just spotted it, jumped on it, and before you know it, they're subsuming sites left and right, and you forget that we ever didn't have it in the service. Again, when I came into the post in 2018, one of the first things I thought about was we spend a lot of time in Streetworks talking about disputing the inspection. But that's not really true, is it? You're not disputing the inspection itself. Like that just happened. That was the passenger for the actual thing that you're got an issue with, which is it a defect or not? So I wanted to switch to a world where we started looking at the defects themselves rather than the inspections. And non-compliance management is what helps us do that. So this when we first started doing these road shows, this was something we were talking about as happening soon, and we were still building it. And by the end of these road shows, we now have non-compliance management in. It's been in for a couple of months, and people should be starting to have built up a pretty good record of what defects are currently in their authority or organization. And if nothing else, the ability to just go to a list page and see a record of all of the non-compliances that you've got in your authority or organization seems like a big step forward to me. I've spoken to people and I know that they were, struggling to come up with that number, or they were running sort of custom reports in systems to try and do it. That's how I used to do it. So yeah, if I worked for an authority again, I would be delighted to have access to this functionality. And the ability to start playing around with it and say, oh, what's my oldest non-compliance in the city? Oh, it's this one. Yeah, we know about that because it's a weight in Chinese granite or whatever it might be. A big fan of that functionality. If any of this is news to you, there's two separate, quite lengthy videos on our YouTube channel for this area of functionality that I think explains it all pretty well. Aaron, I'm just going to pause there. Any interesting cues at all?
Thanks, Paul. We only had one question. It's about the Section 74s. Why do you need admin status to look at the Section 74 charges?
Great question. Great question. So you don't need let's just get this right. It's a Streetworks admin status, not an admin status. And you only need it to see the amounts of money, not the charges themselves. And the reason we did that was because we had very specific feedback from the statutory undertakers who were only comfortable bringing the amounts of money into Street Manager on the basis that they could control who could see it. That was why we ended up where we did, guys. It's a great question, though. Thank you for that. Right, okay. I will go on with the smaller optimizations, Aaron, the more fun stuff. So the Street Manager terms and conditions say that you shouldn't show number plates or people's faces in the photos. And people were saying to me, well, great, okay, Paul, but you come down to our high street and you try and take a photo without getting someone's number plate in there, or we like to take a photo from further back, and then you're getting people's faces in busy locations. So we introduced the concept of the blurring and the obfuscation. I think the word is. I always struggle with that word. And you can see on the left that this works pretty well with the facial blacking out there. But just occasionally we have one where it's taken that whole manhole cover, then there's some sort of number pattern in there that it thinks is a number plate, and it's blurred the whole thing out. So we only get tickets like that every few weeks. They're not common, so it's a pretty small number, I think. But we did have the option of introducing a version of this functionality that was more expensive. It was a few $100s a month, I think, but it would learn over time from its mistakes, basically, like an AI version. And if you think about what's happened in AI over the last 3 years or whatever since we introduced this functionality, we could probably do with having another look at this functionality down the line somewhere and maybe tweaking it or changing it. And I bet we could stop these. You'll get a courtesy board sometimes where the number's been blurred out as well, because the number string looks like a car number plate or whatever. So I reckon we could eliminate those if we wanted to, guys. The distance measuring tool. This was number one on the ideas board. So what a treat to introduce it for people. I think people have been measuring to their heart's content ever since we introduced it. You can go across the road, you can go along the road, you can go around corners and measure in different increments. You can do square meterage areas, and yeah, lovely stuff. This project has given me newfound respect for Bing guys. Those guys, they've got a hard job. Number one in search, as far as I'm concerned. Google as well, I guess, in second place. And when we started Street Manager, we were giving 5 results, and people were saying, I can't find my street, so we increased it to 10, we changed the way it worked. And I was like, oh, this search stuff is actually hard. That's no excuse for Microsoft Outlook to be as bad as it is at searching for emails, by the way. But hey, not my circus, not my monkeys. So we introduced, for instance, this used to be 1 search bar there, and we've introduced the 4 search bars now, so you can put in a town and a highway authority name to start narrowing things down. We added a permit search bar on the home page with the tiles when you first log in, to try and maybe move some traffic away from this page, which is our busiest page, this applications and permits page, just to try and make sure that we're keeping it performant and up to speed. So yeah, loads of effort in the last 4 years put into all the filters and the searches and the sorts and all that kind of stuff. Now, I don't know why the testers test stuff with me based on wrestlers, but it became a bit of a running joke, and that's what they do now. So as soon as we introduced these previews, I think inspectors, for one, really appreciated it. Before, you were having to literally open the photo, and I think it opened in a different browser window or whatever, and then go, oh no, that's not the one I need, and like go through the next one. And now you can just click on these previews, and away you go. Right. Delighted to sneak in this register reinstatement via map functionality. It was going to be a whole roadmap item that we wouldn't have got to, and then some clever soul in the team found a lightweight way of doing it, and now you can just click that button and go in. Before this, I sat in on some of the sessions where this was shown to us. People were literally kind of going, I don't know where they were getting these coordinates from, wherever, Bing or whatever, and then painstakingly typing them into Street Manager. So great to move away from that. Of course, people always want more. That is my experience of having worked in product management for the last 6 years plus. So the next thing people want is the ability to register multiple sites at once. Maybe that will come down the line, but at least we've speeded it up and improved the whole process by letting people do it via the map. Now, reuse exports, something that wasn't even in our brains when we started doing these roadshows, and then by the autumn it had come into the service. So if you have your list of exports in Street Manager, if you click on any of those now, you will be taken to this screen, and you can see that you can download the export again, which is nice. More excitingly, I think you can reuse the filters. So let's say that every week you do a report about Section 81s, or every day you do something around permits that are going to end this day, and you've got all these filters switched on, in progress, this type of works, I don't know, whatever it might be. You can then rerun said filters, all you need to do is just tweak the dates to be today's date or this week's dates or whatever it might be, and boom, you're done. No need to come in and kind of set up your filter from scratch. And you can give the export a name as well. You know, you can choose the name or make notes, I think. So in the notes, you can say Section 81 export or FPN export or daily charges export or whatever you want to do. So I think that is a great little feature. Under assessment. So this took longer than it should have done. We actually discussed this a long while ago with the governance group and agreed it, but it needed a non-stable API to work on, and we just couldn't fit it in the last version of the API. So when we had API v5, we made sure we did this. So putting a permit under assessment does two things. Number one, it's a very useful workflow feature, I think. You know, it tells me that Aaron's already started looking at this job because me and him share an area or whatever it might be, so I don't need to worry about it. Or you could use it to say that you had done your bit because I do the basic assessment and then Aaron does the complex traffic management or whatever it might be. So, you know, when I say under assessment, it means that it's undergone part one of the, you know, however you want to use that button. Equally, what it does is it takes off the auto grant on immediate works. So you start works on Saturday, you finish works on Sunday, the permit will auto grant and it won't need to be assessed by the highway authority. But if you start work on a Monday at 8 and I pick it up and start looking at it and put it under assessment, if at 10 o'clock you go to close it because it was only some short bit of work or whatever it was, it won't auto grant. So under assessment switches off that auto grant, guys. What it doesn't do, and I've learned to say this now because this would always come up as a question, what it doesn't do is anything to do with deeming. The deeming clock isn't affected by putting something under assessment at all. Cancellation reasons. So again, this is in version 5 of the API. So if you're currently on version 4 of the API in the system you use, you won't have seen this yet, but version 4 is dead in a few weeks. So everybody, if they're not already, will soon be seeing these cancellation reasons. So this was Sally Kendall's favorite thing for us to introduce. We added it. We worked with the SMEs to get the right categories, and the DfT or the highway authority or the contractor or the promoter can start pulling off this data and going, oh, you know, 27% of all our cancellation reasons are for clash of works or admin errors, or you know, if you've got 27% of your permits being cancelled for TM issues, that suggests to me there's some sort of issue within your organization that you can start to work on fixing and bring down costs and make yourself more efficient, hopefully. So we're just trying to give data to the industry for this one. And that is the end of part one, which was kind of like a look back at what we've done on a Street Manager these last, would you believe, 4.5 years of live running. Aaron, any more questions at all? No, Paul.
Unbelievably, Paul, there's no more questions. Everyone's happy with the content that you're delivering.
I can only assume.
As I say that, something's coming. Give me a second. Would it be possible to get sample A inspections to 0 in instances where an undertaker has no further work in the borough?
Well, that would be an ecumenical matter, wouldn't it? If Hawk England and the DfT policy guys agree that that is okay, then I'm happy to get that coded into Street Manager. So it's not my decision to take that. So what I always say, and I've been caught out in the past, which is why I say this now, take that to, through the channels, get it, promoted at a Hawk level. I know Robin and Steph are on this call, so hopefully they're listening as well, and we can take that away. Yeah, I don't mind. I know that I don't think the code of practice, and I'm not as familiar with the new code of practice as I was with the old one. I don't think it does a very good job of allowing for these scenarios where generally cable companies, isn't it? They're doing large work volumes, then they stop in an area and go away maybe for a time or for a good while. And the sample inspection process is more designed for people that are just chogging along, carrying out a regular work volume of stuff in an area. So that has come up before. I can't remember if there was arguments against it or something in the code preventing it. But yeah, I've got nothing against that. If the industry wants it and the DfT say it can be done, the policy guys, yeah, no problem at all. I suppose, yeah, it just needs to be used responsibly by everyone, doesn't it? And I'd hate to be sitting in a meeting where someone was saying, we're carrying out loads of Cat A works, but the council's not inspecting any of them because they're allowed to put it down to 0. And yeah, so with some power comes some responsibility, I suggest, guys. Right, if that's it, Aaron, I'm going to press on.
One more question. Not sure if you can answer it, Paul, but we'll see. Some HAs are issuing repeat sample As instead of a second and third being logged as routine A. What should we do if we get a repeat sample A?
I can't answer that because this did come up a while ago. Like, I don't know, like if you've got 100 jobs on the go, right, in your area, and you chuck them all into a a bag, and you pull out one, well, then you've done that Cat A, right? But that job could be going on for 2 weeks, couldn't it? So should you not put that back in the bag, and then the next day there's a 1 in 100 chance that that job's going to come out again? Is that a problem? I don't know. There's probably smarter people than me shouting at the screen right now, Aaron, to say no. The code of practice says you should only do an A once, or I don't have the answer to that, Aaron. And obviously that's not a Street Manager question because Street Manager doesn't control the generation of the A's. So that is more of a policy question, to be fair, or a kind of code of practice question. So yeah, I'll have to plead the fifth on that, Aaron. I'm afraid. It pains me to do that.
Thanks for
Feel free.
Thanks, Paul.
Feel free to debate that one in the chat, guys. And tell you what, Steph, Robin, let's try and see if we can get some clarity on that one. I'm not sure if it's the same case that's bubbling around or if it's come up 2 separate times now, but I definitely have heard that one before. Right. So reporting in Street Manager. So what we would do at this point is show a 10-minute video of the SMEs talking about reporting. I won't do that here. Hopefully they'll give me permission to put that video on YouTube. I don't know if they will or not because it's got their faces in and stuff. But more importantly, I think I would refer you to the excellent webinar that I had very little to do with that's on the YouTube channel where we talk about reporting, and you've got Kevin Ferguson from Durham, Jan Chapman from Thames Water, and Jonathan Weeks from Somerset doing some cool stuff with Power BI and Excel, and it's all covered in that webinar, guys. Go and check it out if you're interested in reporting. But as I say, you've got download all my data. You've got the ability to use something like Power BI and plug it into Street Manager. I get told off by tech for saying that. You've got the list pages where you can do all sorts of cool stuff, and then you've got the performance reporting stuff. So there is certainly plenty of ways to get information out of Street Manager. Okay, I am going to briefly talk about digital traffic orders. I won't spend too long on it. So we have been working on digital traffic orders, funnily enough, since around the same time as Street Manager started. Internally, we call it the North Highland Report. Back in 2018, and that told us that we should be looking at digitizing traffic orders. I came on board sometime in 22 or 23. We did another alpha in, I was going to say last year, but it's 2023 now. And then last year we went into the beta, which, as you probably know from Street Manager, is where you do the exciting stuff and actually build it. So I'm in the offices today of our partner that we're working with to build digital traffic orders. And it's an exciting time actually, because in less than 2 weeks, yes, we've got our service assessment. And then we should be going into public beta early February, I would have thought. We're in private beta at the moment, working with a good number of authorities. So it's a very crucial time as we go through into public beta. It's legislation, the Automated Vehicles Act of 2024. Sally Kendall is working on the the consultation is written. She's not working on it. It's just a matter of agreeing with the government comms guys when it's going to go out, basically, and we need a grid slot, as it's known. So that will probably be going out right around the time of us going into private beta, I would have thought, maybe just ahead. So it's all happening. That consultation includes some options around when it should become a legal requirement to send your new traffic orders into the D-TRO service. There'll be no user interface, guys. Apparently, I don't remember this, I'm too young, but Aaron told me that George Bush Sr. said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." Well, read my lips, there'll be no Street Manager user interface ever. So you need to use a product like Buchanan Park Map or Appiway or One Network or StatMap or Somology or whatever it might be to send in your permanent and temporary orders into the service. So if you're sitting there and you're in charge of temporary orders in your section, if you can just say to the people in the permanent orders section, "Do you know about this digital traffic orders thing? How are you going to be doing it?" Because, what I didn't say, by the way, is that you can use your own, in-house capability as well. You're welcome to do that. We've formed a bit of a group for people to talk about that to each other, and the DfT is happy to help and advise on that where they can. So, the DfT is not forcing you to procure on that, but you do need to know how you're going to be sending your permanent and temporary traffic orders into the service. You can see here, basically, don't get too excited about this diagram, but you've got various ways of sending in your orders, and that's your job as a higher traffic authority. And then people will be extracting that data from the central DfT data store, sucking it out and doing all sorts of cool things with it, dynamic curbside management and parking apps and, providing information about speed limits and all sorts of cool stuff, road closures into sat nav systems and that kind of thing. I don't think I want to say too much more about digital traffic orders. Oh, the question we had at the last webinar was a good one. It was just around I expect that later in the decade it will become a legal requirement to submit your uh, historic orders into the D-TRO service, but this year it will become a legal requirement just to send your new orders into the service. But you're welcome to send us old ones if you've got them digitized already, guys. So I've already said all this, going into public beta in 2025, maybe February. If you want to be part of the mailing list, just email dtro@dft.gov.uk. We're just looking at our plans for having webinars and all that good stuff. When we do a webinar, we put it on the Street Manager YouTube channel, actually. Seeing as we already had that up and running, we've carried on using that. And I'm hoping people will start to move over to the beta in good time. If you've been using one of the services I mentioned earlier already to create your traffic orders, if they've got it working with somebody in the private beta, why not switch it on and join us in public beta ahead of it becoming a legal deadline? If you've got some procurement to do, fair enough. But if you've already got one of those services I mentioned, start sending us your orders, gang. The more the merrier. Right. Material classification. I did a whole bit on material classification at the start of the road shows where we hadn't built it yet, where I was showing videos of the designs. Now, as we retire this material, people are sending their material classification notifications into Street Manager. There's videos on the YouTube channel showing how the material classification functionality works. I think it's really nice. I think it's a big success story that we worked between DfT, the Environment Agency, Streetworks UK, and Surrey Lane Rental, who provided the funding for this work. Well, just the 3/4 of an hour of speaking without taking a breath. So yeah, a good news story for the industry, I would say, the material classification work. Okay, that brings me to the final section, Street Manager, the future.
Before you start, Paul, let me interrupt
Oh
you.
yeah. I was going to say, Aaron, there could be nobody left on this call by now, and you guys didn't have the heart to tell me, and you were just letting me talk, basically. But yeah, go on.
We just had a quick question on the D-TRO stuff. What is the estimated legal start date for the D-TRO? I'm assuming when. Go ahead.
The consultation will be out in the near future, and that gives you some options as part of the consultation of the date. I think there's 2 or 3 options. I don't quite know what happened in the end. There was going to be 3 at one point. Maybe we just went with 2 in the end, but there's a couple of options at least in the consultation for you to respond to. So that will inform the date we go with.
Thank you, Paul.
Right. Street Manager of the future. Starting to flag now a little bit. I hope I don't have a meeting straight after this. As it says there, what do we want to do with this service, guys? Over the next few years. So our contract with our supplier ends this year. Yes, there's the option of doing an extension there, but still, after that, at some point, if we go down that route, you're still going to need to do another procurement. How long is that procurement for? What is the level of that procurement? Did we want to carry on developing as we are? I should have updated this to the current roadmap, but you can see here that we've been cracking on at quite a rate for the last however many years. do we want to carry on at that level, or do we want to cool it down a little bit? You know, people that work in your organizations, I'm struggling to, talk for more than a minute or so without getting a frog in my throat at this point. Forgive me, guys. People that work for your organizations have got loads of ideas about stuff that we could be doing in the service. And the important thing to remember is that we probably won't be or we won't be putting your fees down by, 50% or 60%. It won't be like that, because there's always an element of keeping the lights on in Street Manager. There'll be charges for Amazon Web Services. There'll be charges for the support team. You'd want to keep some sort of team on to do bug fixes and things like that, even if it was just a really small, development team. What is the future of that? If we're only putting, Sally Kendall thinks it might be 20% that we could put people's fees down if we stopped, producing at this rate. Even if it was a third, some of the organizations and the amounts that they're paying versus what we can do with that money and how much we can deliver. I think that, the feedback we've had from people at these roadshows has been to crack on and keep delivering, and I think at one point we will start to come towards the end of the roadmap and be able to draw a line under it. But it does feel to me at the moment that there's still plenty more that we can be doing. If I go back here, so in terms of things that we're working on, delighted to be pushing forward in this phase with some improvements to commenting. We've got commenting improvements and work history improvements that we want to do. And commenting is, people loved it when we showed them. We showed the SMEs and myself, and I was like, oh, this is fantastic. One thing we do is finally sort out internal comments and make that work better. That's never worked very well in Street Manager compared to what people were asking for. I think we've nailed that. And there's various other things. So that's coming in the near future, the commenting stuff. And then over the next few months, we'll be doing the improvements to work history that the governance group prioritised. Clash management and collaboration. Again, when we started these roadshows, these were just designs, and now some of this stuff is in Street Manager as a reality. I love the fact that finally, after all these years, we've got the little lightning bolt for the electrical works and the the tap for the waterworks and stuff. So that's great to have that in. And we've got more improvements in the area of clash management and collaboration over the next few months, but hopefully you've started to see that coming in and having some benefits. I know we broke things around the mapping screen for a couple of weeks, and then we got that fixed. So forgive me for that one, but we have sorted that, and that's a distant memory now. And then something that's so hot off the press that I didn't even have a design in Street Manager. So I just looked for dashboards, and this was what I found. But we are looking at the moment into, and I literally had a meeting on this yesterday, work lists. So a work list would be, permits I need to assess today, 27. Click on 27, bring up the permits I need to assess, or whatever it might be, in permits that have been refused that I need to look at as a promoter, and you might have work lists around inspections or FPNs or whatever it might be. And then those work lists would inform the dashboard. I think we were going to do dashboards first at one point, but when we did the research, we kind of realized that we needed to do the work lists first ahead of the dashboard. But when we've spoken to people about what they're looking for from Street Manager and from the Street Manager user interface, constantly that from the heavy users, that concept of the dashboard has come back to us. And then the smaller users that maybe aren't logging into Street Manager every day and probably aren't on this call, what they're always asking for is notifications around a permit being refused, or a Section 74 being received, or a Section 81, or whatever it might be. So that's something else that we would like to do in the future as well, if the governance group wills it, give people those notifications. Obviously, that's a decent sized chunk of work, which is why we are 6 years in plus to the development of Street Manager, and we've not got to it yet. So that's kind of one of the big last white whales that's out there, I think, actually. And then again, when we started this roadshow, this stuff was in its infancy, and I think it was Devon or Dorset that coined the term hanging permit. And someone along the way has turned that into zombie permits, and that's kind of stuck. And a zombie permit, as you might know by now, is the concept of a permit that's hanging around your list page in Street Manager, even though it's dead. It's past its validity period, it's past its end date. It's not been cancelled, maybe, or maybe it has even, but it's still hanging around that list page. So we want to put some default filters on, maybe to clear out the works and stop you from seeing these things when you log into the page. If you need to access them, you can obviously be able to access them. But again, the beauty of this is that even when we were doing these road shows in the autumn, this was still in the theoretical stage. And now research sessions have happened on this, and we're talking about it, as being a real thing that's, at least we're going to have designed over the next month or two. Also, we want to do more with integrating traffic management plans into Street Manager. That's in its early days. And then you have, I've always wanted to flag up high impact works to users. So, I used to see it with my team when I was a Streetworks manager. People kind of, you're spending a lot of time in your day assessing permits, and you can kind of, they all start to merge into one after a while. So I was really keen to start flagging up to people, hey, this is on a Cat 1 road, these are my solutions. Well, I'm sure come up with something better, but make it a different color, have a big flag on there, whatever it might be. This is a Cat 2 road and it's traffic sensitive, and these works are in the carriageway, and have people start to sort of think about works in a different way when they approach them, or even on the list pages to flag them up to people. Hey, this job that's just come in is on one of your busier roads. Or at the application stage, flag up to people that this is high impact works. It's not just a bog standard, side street, no carriageway impact or whatever. You need to consider this work before you submit the permit in more detail. That's the way I would like to take Streetworks, I think. So that is, I do believe, the last slide. Almost like I timed this to fit in. Makes me look quite competent, that, doesn't it? There you go, Aaron. Do we have any more questions?
Thanks, Paul. There's no more questions as such. There was kind of a concern raised, which you maybe brought on yourself, regarding the D-TRO. So potential requests for historic traffic orders. How far would we need to go back, and how would the HA provide this historical information into a digital format? How would you like to address that, Paul?
Authorities all around the country have looked into and have digitized their data. I was speaking to can't remember who it was. It was someone like Surrey or East Sussex, someone down that part of the world. And they were saying to me, "Oh, we've already digitised our parking offences, and we've got wardens that are going around with, tablets, and it's all digital, and that's how they, find the parking regs and stuff. But we haven't done our moving traffic offences." So there are people that do this for a living, this kind of, digitizing your orders and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I'm not, I'm not minimizing the cost, by the way. There is a cost to it, but people around the country are looking into this regardless of D-TRO because they think it's a net benefit to their organization. And also, don't forget, guys, we're recording this, so I better be careful with my words. There is the new burdens process out there that affects when central government puts something onto local government. There's the potential for costs to be recharged and stuff. So that's a whole conversation in terms of the costs, but there is a whole well-established process for digitizing traffic orders. And as far as I know, when they go and do that digitization, they do the whole network, so it's not, forget about, and then I think what they do is like a easy for me to say, consolidation order to bring everything into the current. So yeah, I know you'll have traffic orders on your books from, like, I don't know, 1974 or 1988 or both, whatever it might be, but do a full sweep of the area, pull up what your parking regs are, and bring it all into the modern world, I would say. But that is a conversation for another day. First things first, at some point in 25, it will become that legal requirement to submit your new orders into the service. And that is where we will start, guys, if you don't have any historic stuff digitized. No problem at all. Look forward to working with you on getting your new orders into D-TRO, Aaron. Oh, look, 29 past. Beautiful, beautiful. Aaron, our next job is to knock these slides into an order that they can go out in. I might need to add more context or put some stuff in the notes, or whatever it might be.
Thank you, Paul. No more questions. So thank you for bringing the roadshow virtually for those who couldn't attend. And you can have the final word.
Thanks, Aaron. See you at the top, guys.